Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. You are on the sidelines with the sideline guys. And today, people, today, I am joined once again by my brother in Negrongness, a man who has been MIA, right? Only for my victories. He goes MIA, but it's okay. He has returned. How's it going, Sean?
It's good, man. It's good. A lot of moving parts right now going on in the grown household. So it's good. Glad to be back. Glad to talk another UFC Hellscape. We all love those cards, and we are here. I think this is our first daylight show in like a good 6 months to a year. So this is nice. This is interesting. It's a nice change of pace.
I agree. You're looking great. You look like porcelain with the way the light's shining off you right now. So it's going to be a good show. We're in for a good show. You already tipped our hand. We got UFC Hellscape 24,023. But before we get into that, Sean, why don't you let the people know where they can find you and all of your musings online?
Well, I only have one. So it's you can find me at bsreports.org, where Chris will never show, and you can find my email there on the at the bottom of the screen, at the bottom of the link, and hit me up if you ever want to get involved in the sports writing world, and I'll help you get started.
You heard the man, BS Reports. As always, you could catch me on Twitter and
Not there.
oh, not there. No, why not?
No, I was just saying because I thought you said BS reports and you can catch me, and I was like, not there because
Oh,
you're never gonna be there.
see, I'm
I'll
I'm
be there in
already a part. I'm
October.
already a part of it. I'm already a part of it. So
I'll be there in
once I make
October.
my debut, is gonna do unrenowned numbers, right? Unheard of
October of
numbers on BS
2023, this guy
reports.
said.
Hey,
And here we are.
all good things come to those who wait, and a good thing will come eventually. But you can find me on Twitter and TikTok at Negrong MMA, Instagram Chris Negrong underscore. But make sure you're following the brand at OTS Media Co. on all social media platforms, OTS Media on YouTube. So we're back. As he said, we've been gone for a while, so it's only right off the top we do our standings update. So as of last week, Sean, at UFC Seattle, I went 10-2 while you went 7-5, bringing me the best pick'ems record of either of us during this entire year. And it just so happens it comes as my first victory against you in the head-to-head this year. It's been a hard first 2 months, but god damn it, I'm taking this dub.
It took you 6 events. How does it make you feel? Six
It's
events
okay.
to get one win.
Well,
I'm
just like
proud of you
that,
though.
though, I'm only 3 points away. So don't act like you've been beating me by insane margins. I'm
Hey,
right
that's just
there.
because
So,
I've been giving you a taste. How many years have
hey,
I
yo.
said this? Hey, take it as an AO. All right. How many years? How many years have I said this? Said I let you creep in, make you believe. I don't want to, I don't want to take you out early, and then, you don't have any reason to continue playing. So, this is one of those weeks where you have your little moment, take yourself out to dinner, throw a party for yourself, and
Mhm.
then we continue and resume as business.
Hey, you're trying to keep me from not showing up to play, but god damn it, I've been ready to play the last 3 weeks. But we'll keep that as is. As he said earlier, we're back for UFC. No, wait. We move on, it's only right. The dynasty standings last week, I had 6 competitors total, and I went a record of 4-2, while you went 5-4 with 9 total combatants, bringing our record for dynasty so far to 19-18-1 for me. 51.32%. We're above the 50 line. All right. From this point, we're cruising, and you're sitting at 29 wins. You guys heard that right. 10 more than me. 29 wins, 18 losses for 61.7% win percentage this year. You're coming. Listen, you hit the first 2 months running. I respect it. I see clearly your team is active right now. Every week, almost 7, 8 fighters, but on the horizon, right? This has to slow down. This is not sustainable, ladies and gentlemen, and your percentage isn't too far away. So I'm confident. I'm going to work my way back in. Our total dynasty standings from the beginning of time is as follows. I have 214 wins, 135 losses, 3 ties, and 4 no contests, bringing me to a win percentage of 61.1, while Sean is currently sitting at 224 wins, 138 losses, 1 tie, and 3 no contests, bringing his total dynasty record to a 61.75. You got a .65 point lead at current. You're still leading in all categories, but last week was a good week, God damn it. So don't take this away from me. So as we move on to the card that we're here to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, it's only right we set the stage with some good old women's MMA, Sean. We got Montana De La Rosa plus 118 going up against Luana Carolina minus 130. Man, I think the odds are pretty appropriate for this one. I've waffled back and forth because I think the ways in which both of these ladies are able to get it done is going to be pretty easy to lay out, right? I think Luana Carolina is looking to come and be a marauder in this matchup and swarm Montana De La Rosa. Obviously, her biggest weakness being her striking game in general. But obviously, Montana De La Rosa is going to be trying to get that takedown and work her submissions. We've seen Luana Carolina, let's be honest, right? We've seen her get embarrassingly submitted a couple different times, right? So there's a lot of different ways a submission artist could approach a matchup like this because it's been proven in a lot of different ways that it can be done. This is a tough fight because of that. Like, I honestly have been leaning Luana Carolina all week just because I feel like her advantages are a little more easy to come by in MMA. But I just can't get the thought out of my head of Luana Carolina getting knee barred by one of your favorite fighters, right? One of your favorite fighters, the former Ariana Lipsky. I don't even remember her current last name anymore, but I'm going back and forth on this fight. Give me Montana De La Rosa, the dog.
I like it. I like it. It's a good start for going different to start this Hellscape card. This one was close for me as well. For me, I think both fighters come in pretty close in talent, but I do feel for me when I look at Montana, I feel like the focus obviously is going to be the grappling game, but I also feel like it's Montana's BJJ skills that I feel like have lessened with more competition. I feel like she's become more and less of a threat, and that I feel is what makes Carolina have more of an edge, if that makes sense. Because I think she's a better striker, and I think both will focus on grappling and being because they're primary grapplers. If we're being real here, but I think Carolina's going to just focus on defending well and then using her advantage in striking, and just kind of slowly piecing her up. And then I honestly don't look at Montana's skill BJJ skills as premier as I thought, going in. So this one's close, but I have it as Carolina via split decision. So I think this is going to be a pretty close fight, but I do think Carolina takes it.
Yep, you could see either scenarios. I've said that right off the top. I just feel like competition matters, God damn it. And clearly, one of these fighters has fought the better fighters, and it might explain why she looked pretty rough in some of those matchups. But we will move on to what I consider one of my favorite fights on this whole card. We got the number 12 ranked Charles Johnson minus 120 going up against Ramazan Temirov. Sean, you're a specialist when it comes to both of these fighters because not only is it your time to break down a fight first, but both of these guys are representing your dynasty team. So why don't you tell us about how this one's going to play out?
Don't like that. I hate when that happens. I feel like you obviously when you make these picks for Dynasty, you never expected to. Eventually, they face off against one another. I think that's one of the last things you think about. But this is a great fight. I was just talking to you about this off air. I was surprised that this fight was first, and then it obviously got moved to second. But I still think this fight should have been moved up on the card. But for me, when it comes to this one, I think Johnson's going to adopt a very defensive striking approach here. A lot of jabs, teep kicks, just trying to exploit his reach, use his height advantage. And for me, I think Ramazan is more of explosive, aggressive, just going to be very crazy with the powerful hooks, just trying to get Johnson in a place he's not comfortable in. And I think Johnson does a really good job with his counter wrestling and making it very effective against other wrestlers. I don't think it's going to be more significant role in this fight. I feel like this fight's going to be majority standing, and I think with the heavy hooks, like I said, that Ramazan's going to bring, I think Johnson's going to be very cautious early on, learn the tactics, and I think you're going to see a much slower Ramazan going into rounds 2 and 3. And I think that's where Johnson could start to let go of the defense a little bit and put more of the offense. So I think this one's really about power versus strategy, and I think strategy takes it all day. So I think Johnson by UD.
I love that you frame it that way because I agree with you. I am leaning with Charles Johnson in this matchup, but it's a weird one for me because I think clearly Temirov has a little bit of that Dricus Duplessis in him, right? He's going out there to annihilate, and he wears on guys, man. There's multiple guys he has knocked out stiff, right? Which is something that's rare to see in this weight class. And you see the name, right? You expect to see that grappling acumen be a part of it as well. But yeah, no, he's just going out there to brutalize you, and we haven't really seen him tested in those ways. I think just the way that Charles Johnson fights is very reminiscent of, I would say, a more technically sound Diaz brother, right? Putting you in a position where you're running with him, and yeah, he's going to get cracked along the way, which makes this a scary fight, which is why the odds are where they are. But I think ultimately, like you said, he's going to be able to outwork him and put himself in a position to wear on him as the fight goes down. But man, I think in MMA specifically lately, we've been seeing a lot of dudes that just go out there and hit that turbo button, and it does well for them. So I could easily see Temirov getting a knockout here with the way Charles Johnson is susceptible, especially early on in fights. But I think once he downloads the data, he's going to be able to take apart the ticking time bomb that is Ramazan Temirov, but by decision, I think. Next up, you've got one of Sean's favorites, right? It's only right. I'm going back to back with the women's MMA analysis. We've got Andrea Lee plus 175 going up against JJ Aldrich minus 205. Now, when I looked at this matchup, I immediately in my head was like, oh yeah, this is a Andrea Lee fight, right? Like this is 100% gonna be a win for her. And then I looked at the tape, and if anything reminded me of the wasted potential that is Andrea Lee and her career, it was looking at the tape, man. Like I feel like both of these ladies, they're very opposite in that way. Like JJ Aldrich is someone who I think is going out there and wringing the towel dry of her potential. I think she has grown in a lot of ways, and honestly, let's be real, that's not really common for the camp that she's coming from at this stage of MMA. So I'm fascinated by that dynamic because I think as far as their initial potential, Andrea Lee is clearly falling short of that. But this is a hard fight to pick because of that too. I feel like if she does come focused and looks different than she has in the last couple of fights, she could easily have success from top position in this fight. But I just can't bank on something we have not been seeing, right? I think, like as I mentioned, just as far as who I thought they were when they got into the UFC, I would have immediately assumed I was picking Andrea Lee, but this was pretty easy. Give me JJ Aldrich point fighting her way to a decision.
That's exactly what I have in my analysis. Point fighting. This is all point fighting for me. So I think for me, you know how much I love talking about these fights, but for me, Aldrich I think has a slight edge when it comes to the striking. I think it's quick boxing bursts, outbursts, and just constantly just small little attempts, but just keep pushing forward. And I think that's really effective against Lee, who's a very clinched, focused style fighter. I think, however, if we can pin Aldrich to the cage and use her in the clinch, I think it could obviously make it a totally different type of fight. I think it really depends on Aldrich staying away from the cage and keeping this fight in the center of the circle. So this is it honestly is in for me, who wants to take control of the fight? So I think whoever can take control of this fight, obviously we all say that, but I think in this one it's so significant because I don't see a way where if one takes control, the other can find a way to turn the fight back around. I think it's once someone makes it their fight, it's their fight for the next 15 minutes or less. So I think Aldrich still has the slight advantage when it comes to on the ground. She's shown she has a really good ability to adapt and be very aggressive when she's got the takedown attempts. So I think while Lee is going to try to trip Aldrich, take her down, and form the clinch and keep the fight close, I actually find this fight that Aldrich is going to do better if this fight makes it to the ground. And I like her. I like her in this fight specifically against Lee in the stand up as well. So I think this one, while I could care less about how this fight really turns out in reality, I think Aldrich should be favored to win, and I'm picking her to win this one pretty handedly.
Yeah, I also feel like this strangely can be a loser leaves town fight. But I think even if JJ Aldrich loses, like I feel like they're just gonna keep her around. I don't know. I think talent management needs to really take a look at this roster. 'Cause there's been a lot of times recently where I'm like,
Should it be
how is this
you?
person still here? Right? Yeah. Call me, Dana. If you need somebody, I got you. Like, I mean, just the card placement on this fight. We're gonna get to this fight
Hundred
card. We're gonna
percent.
get to that later on too, but it makes no
Yes.
sense. A lot of these decisions make no sense. But we move on to a fascinating fight, if you ask me. We've got Danny Silva minus 210 going up against Lucas Almeida plus 185. Sean, you get to lead the dance for once. And of course, once you get to lead the dance, it's a fight we actually care about, right? Wait, oh, I'm assuming. How you feel about this matchup?
This is a great fight. This is a great fight. I hate I hate that these two are fighting each other because I think this is my number one or this could have been my number two of hardest to pick for me because I feel like this can go either way honestly. Um, Looking at it, I think Almeida is very known, for his excellent kickboxing, using the feints, being very strategic in his attacks. Being able to use very different variety of his attacks to overwhelm opponents and just constantly push pressure. I think he's got a much more striking advantage over a better striking advantage over Silva, who's going to be very wrestle heavy. I think Silva has shown vulnerability in his chin, so if Almeida can connect, I think it's a very quick night. I really do. But for me, I think Silva is going to use a lot of Almeida's aggression against him. And I could see a situation where, as much as I think this is one of those situations where 9 times out of 10, I probably would have picked Almeida. But this is the one I'm choosing Silva here because I feel that Silva's going to find a way to bring this fight to the ground successfully and consistently, and is going to be able to control the rounds. I think Almeida has a really good shot. If you wanted to bet, I would bet money Almeida knocks him out. Like that's a nice little prop alternate bet of whatever you want to do, because that's definitely a situation that can happen here. But I think for me, I think Silva's going to find this way to the ground and just control on the ground and get that control time up. Really control the rounds, find a way with a decision victory here, and I'm going Silva.
Man, you got me. I'm not gonna lie, you got me confused because I agree with you. I'm picking Danny Silva, but I do not agree on the dynamics of the fight. This is weird to me. This is weird to me because I think Lucas Almeida, I agree, is the more technical striker, but I think Danny Silva has the better boxing of the two. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing that shows up in this specific matchup. Because yes, obviously the kicks can wear on Danny Silva, certainly, but I just feel like positionally, right? I think Danny Silva is a much more schooled fighter than Lucas Almeida is. I think he's shown an ability to get fights in the areas he wants them to be in a little bit better than Lucas Almeida. And obviously, you could argue Lucas Almeida losses comes against good fighters, right? But I don't like what I've seen recently of Lucas Almeida, and obviously I'm huge on Josh Kulabau, which he also just got released. So I'm gonna miss you, bro. I disagree. Like I thought that even though Danny Silva won, Josh Kulabau won that fight, and then I watched it again, and I'm like, yeah, actually, probably they were right. Danny Silva definitely won that fight, and considering how I feel, maybe this is just my bias, right? And I'm high on Josh Kulabau in that way, but we saw him get tagged in that fight in those ranges, but we also saw him compete, especially earlier on in those same ranges as well. I just think even though that was his sort of homecoming in the UFC, it was against easily the toughest guy that either of them fought. And then a lot of guys that Lucas Almeida's fighting are still taking him out and just looking like fools on the last card, right? Shout out to you, Andre Touchy Feely. So I'm going with Danny Silva as well. I think if anybody's getting knocked out, it's Lucas Almeida. So I love this, but we're picking the same guy, so I guess it doesn't matter too much in the long run. Next up, we move on to the Division of Kings 135. We got Douglas Silva de Andrade plus 250 going up against John Castaneda minus 310. I'm excited to lead the dance with this one because I've been the John Castaneda apologist, right? For the last 5 years, I have been talking so much about his potential and everything he brings to the table. Um, but you could argue he hasn't really lived up to that in a lot of different ways, especially in the higher tier matchups he's gotten in the UFC. I think this matchup, though, is very favorable for John Castaneda, but this is also similar to the John Lineker test of previous years in this division. It's such a hard matchup. Like no matter if technically you should be able to be a step ahead of this person, they have the absolute raw athleticism to just put you out at any point in this fight. So it's going to be a very dangerous, instinctual fight out of both of these guys, just because Douglas Silva de Andrade is going to be hitting that turbo button we talked about earlier and just winging shots, trying to find a way to knock out Castaneda. I think ultimately the ability to change levels and in his fainting game, right, make Douglas Silva de Andrade exhausted just from having to address those threats. And then eventually, I see John Castaneda hurting Douglas Silva de Andrade and finishing him with a submission. I think this fight is going to be a tough fight no matter what. But I think this is going to show, in my opinion, how far John Castaneda can go in the UFC. I think this is a great opportunity to showcase your skills. Go out there and do it. And if you don't, you're probably going to lose spectacularly. But let's do it, John.
Ooh, you know what? I was kind of sad. I thought you were gonna go the other way with that, but I'm picking Castaneda as well. It's just so you know, you can write it down in your little doc. I know that's what you wait for. But for me, similar to what you said, for me, I think for Castaneda, it's all about power and precision here. I think Andrade has got a lot of raw power, makes him a dangerous threat. I try to do everything to what you did not say. That's what the hardest part about this show is. But I think, like I said, it's raw power, dangerous threat, aggressive striking. That's who Andrade, Silva de Andrade is. That's who I feel like is what Castaneda can use to now counter that. And I feel like I know it sounds easier than said, but it's one of those where I feel like Castaneda can do a lot of countering to effectively wait for Silva and just reset him. I think it's one of those things like I like using that now to reset him because I think it's just one of those where I think Castaneda can absolutely control this whole fight. I think Castaneda's leg kicks are just another key weapon that can constantly slow down Silva when it gets later on. And I think that's just where you're just going to be playing in Castaneda's fucking fight now. It's you're in his world now. I think it's just going to be a lot of leg kicks, striking, wrestling. Crucial role is the wrestling, but I think it's just going to be a complete onslaught, to be completely honest with you. So I thought at first while looking at it could be closer fight, but I have this by decision, but I honestly think this fight could end within the first 5 minutes. If this goes to the second round, this could end early, but this feels to me like a very one-sided fight. If Castaneda can just continue to prove to control this fight the way he knows how, and I think this one will be not that competitive.
Man, I'm excited for this fight, and I'm also excited for this next fight. How the hell are either of these last three fights not the main what is it, the featured prelim, whatever the hell you want to call it? Like how? How? Please educate me. We've got Ricardo Ramos plus 320 at 145, ladies and gentlemen. Still kind of strange to get that embedded in my brain. Going up against Chepe Machine Gun Mariscal minus 410. Sean, you get to lead the dance on this featherweight bout. Who you got?
Chepe. This is a fun fight, man. This is where it comes down to card placement, fight placement on a card, and this one is going to be fun. This is a, I think, in this fight, I think Ramos brings a very unique skill set with spinning elbows, quick strikes, a lot of good footwork. I actually really am a big fan of Ramos's footwork and how he's able to move around the cage. I feel like he's honestly in the UFC period, he's probably one of the best at moving around the cage and does a really good job maneuvering around. I'm not saying that he's top tier fucking championship talent. I'm just saying when it comes to footwork, I think he's really good and probably one of the best that I've seen in the UFC in this I guess what a generation is that what we can call it. I think that's where he's going to pose a lot of challenges on the feet for Mariscal. But I think Mariscal is just so relentless with the pursuit of the takedowns and the ability to just close the distance. Like the way he just neutralizes striking from other opponents. I think that's what's going to happen here. I don't. As good as Ramos is with the footwork, like I just said, I think Chepe is just going to find a way to just close it. So it just gets harder and harder to continue to push forward for Ramos. And when that happens, you're in Chepe's world now. And when he has you going backwards, you're in trouble because Chepe's got an excellent cardio, high pace wrestling. You know, like I said, he can wrestle you for a full 15 minutes without getting to the chair and taking a break. He will consistently and constantly be all over you. So I think this one's just going to continuously and constantly wear Ramos down within the first 10 minutes. And you're going to see Ramos trying to having a difficult time breathing and lifting his arms up in round 3. So I think that's where Chepe comes in and just annihilates him. So to me, I have it Chepe round 3 knockout.
I love it. Chepe Mariscal is such a fun fighter to watch. I really feel like though Ricardo Ramos's way to win this is to knock him out. Like that's the only, and it's way easier said than done. But that is the only way I could see him winning this fight. I feel like even if those guillotine attempts are going to be coming early and often for Ramos, I just don't see him submitting Chepe. Like you said, he is an athletic scrambler in this division that honestly is hard to see him appear when it comes to the way he scrambles. He is this division's Marab, right? If we're going to put it in those terms. And that I think that's speaking very highly of Chepe and his skills. But I think he is in that same way a little bit vulnerable when it comes to straight shots. Ricardo Ramos has shown to have a really good range game, and obviously stepping in with some of those elbows too in the clinch, I think is going to do him justice. I think this is going to be a hard fought fight no matter what, but I agree with you. I think Chepe is just going to drain him, right? Take the life away from him. Similar to the path to victory of Charles Johnson, though, he's going to have to make him work to get it done. He can't let him stay at range and throw teep kicks or rabonas at you and then hope to win a fight like that. He has to close the distance and make him feel that threat of that pressure. I don't think it's hard for him to do that, though. That's his brand of fighting, like you said. And I just love this fight, though, because if, despite where the odds are and us feeling like they're in a good spot, when we're watching the fight, at least for the first couple minutes, it's not going to feel like a fight that is minus 410. It's going to feel like a very even fight. But once things start to fall apart for Ramos, as they tend to do, it's going to be very one-sided from there. I'm also going with Chepe. Next up, we move on to how the fuck is this man still here? We got Austen Lane plus 410 going up against Mario Pinto Bean minus 549. Sean, this fight right here. This fight right here. I'm tired of it, bro. I'm really tired of it. And okay, we get your showcase fight, right? Shout out to the Tafa bro from last week. You fooled me, right? That ended up being a showcase fight too. You need these guys sometimes, right? But even then, man, like this guy, in my opinion, was never UFC caliber. And it's tough, right? When you're in a division of a lot of guys who probably shouldn't be in the UFC either, right? But even in those scenarios, right? If you're a heavyweight that has no semblance of a chin, what is your path to victory in MMA? I don't understand. You're not a strange grappler like Alexei Oleinik, right? I guess it is outworking the guy, which in theory shouldn't be hard at heavyweight, right? But yeah, man, I guess it's tough to see an athlete the caliber of Austen Lane just so clearly started this sport as a secondary option, right? If this was his primary option and this is where his initial thoughts were in his career, I think you could argue he probably would have been able to maximize his potential. But I think just with the way he is so compromised and vulnerable on the feet, how can you even put in the skill development? Like it's tough. It's tough, bro. And against someone that I think is shown to be a genuinely good prospect at heavyweight, right? Someone that has also shown some pretty good defensive capabilities when it comes to the grappling exchanges. Good instincts at this division are hard to come by, and I think Mario Pinto has those in the striking phases and also when they tie up. I don't know, man. I think we got a murder on our hands, Sean. Give me Mario Pinto.
That's pretty crazy for someone to talk about Austin this way. When you traded for the guy he beat in his last fight in Robella, so that's pretty wild coming from you. I think that there's a lot of hate there. I don't know what it is. I don't know if you have something personal against this man, but for a guy who
We all
just
were in
beat,
love with Robelis's potential. I don't do this, all right?
I don't know, man. I don't think anyone remembers that. So you were all on the Robella's hype train, and you traded for him, and now he's not even in the UFC. So Austin would like a word on that.
Hey,
But
I still got Benoit Saint Denis out of that trade, so I'll
yeah, and
take
I
it. I'll
got
take
Ian
it.
Gary and Almeida, so I think
I'll
I
take
I
it.
win the trade. All right.
There's a okay, okay. I'm gonna be winning a lot more things on this dynasty front.
I don't
So
know. Since that trade, what has BSD lost two straight? All right then.
we got to find our way in the division. Trust me, Ian Gary's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
see
yeah,
his
yeah,
day as
yeah,
well. And,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and
yeah,
bro, that was
yeah.
a bullshit early stoppage against my guy Sergey Spivak in the last fight too. So don't act like this was the most pristine scheme you've ever done. I'll give it to you, bro. Bellis was ass. All right, but that doesn't make Austin Lane good. You're not picking him here. So point made. You're just here to dick suck, right? But you just wanted to bring shit up to hurt
That's
me.
right.
All right, and clearly it fucking worked. I hate you. Continue.
Well, on that note, Pinto by second round knockout. This fight should go quick. I think Lane has very dirty, dirty striking, and I mean that not in like a like bad way. In a way, like it's I don't like that word dirty. I would say he doesn't have a very clean striking method. It's not. It's not. There's no technique. I feel like his striking is not refined. I think Pinto is going to find the chin very easy. I think Lane's chin is super vulnerable, especially to any sort of heavy hit. Lane's going to try to rely on the wrestling here. It's not going to work. I think his best thing is to avoid the striking early for Pinto, kind of get Pinto to breathe a little heavy, and then slowly try to piece him up heading into late round two, early round three. But I don't see that happening. I think Pinto lands pretty significantly early in round one, and it kind of finishes it up in round two. So I have this one Pinto by knockout, round two early.
You love to see it. Next up, we move on to one of the few dynasty competitors of this card for your boy. Danny Barlow is going up again. Left hand to God. I remember that. One of the worst nicknames in the history of MMA. Minus 310 going up against Sam Patterson plus 260. In this Game of Thrones, there can only be one king, Sean. Who do you got?
Ooh, another good fight for me. For me, I am choosing Barlow here. I think Barlow, another one, round two knockout. I think Barlow has a very, 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 very clear striking advantage here. Great power, especially from, we know, his southpaw stance, like we mentioned before. I think he's going to do a lot of left hooked with straight punches kind of early, just using that very effectively. The same sort of technique. I think Patterson's best chance here lies in grappling and keeping the fight in close contact. But I think this one's going to be one where Patterson's going to try to force the clinch and force a submission. And I think that's his only way to victory, even if he can't get the submission, to try to control the fight as long as he possibly can in a way where he can win that round. But to me, I think this one is just for all about Barlow avoiding the close grappling exchange and just forcing the same sort of precision striking you've been doing, since you started, and just rolling right through Patterson's submission skills. And I think that's going to be pretty significant when it comes to Barlow's knockout power. I don't think Patterson's going to be able to keep up and defend well, early on, and I think it's going to lead to a quick knockout. So, give me Barlow by knockout.
Barlow by knockout is tough. I think this all comes down to health, right? I obviously Danny Barlow's my guy, so I'm gonna be biased in this scenario no matter what. But broke his arm and then is still fighting with a broken arm in his last fight, which against Josh Quinlan was a little bit closer than you would imagine it to be, just based on how we both clearly regard the skills of Danny Barlow. But this guy reminds me, and I hope this isn't racist at all, and you'll understand when I say it, but he reminds me of a young Leon Edwards. Like, I feel like his skill being that outside striker, but the next part of his game for us to understand for his development is to be able to be effective in those clinch scenarios, to be able to defend shot takedowns, etc. So this is a good test for him in that way. I think I remember picking Sam Patterson against Yanal Ashmouz just because I thought he could solve that problem against a much smaller fighter. And now having to deal with a similar level of power, but also someone that is way longer than Yanal Ashmouz, it's going to be tough, right? In those scenarios, obviously A plus B does not always equal C. But God damn it, when it comes to this matchup, I think, like you said, Danny Barlow's probably going to be able to land on Sam Patterson early and often. But if Sam Patterson can stick around and find himself in grappling scenarios, there's a lot to figure out still about Danny Barlow and his MMA game. So that is the main question. I think ultimately, when Danny Barlow is sharp and healthy, um, he's shown really good instincts as well in those phases. So I'm going to be picking Danny Barlow too, but an interesting fight, more interesting than the odds suggest. And now we move on to a fight that I'm sure Sean is very invested in. We've got Hyder Amil plus 170 going up against William Gomis. And obviously, you are the dynasty owner of Hyder Amil. And you are also somebody, Sean, who absolutely hates William Gomis, right? So this is a moment of redemption for you waiting to happen. I'm gonna steal the thunder here though by making my pick right off the top. I'm going with William Gomis in this matchup. I think the fact that he was able to get it done against Joe Anderson Brito shows you he can win this kind of a matchup. Obviously, Hyder Emil, very much so a marauder of that same vein of a Yanal Ash moves. This motherfucker's coming after you, right? And he's going to be the smaller guy out there no matter what, but he's looking to land early and often. I think ultimately, though, William Gomis is just too slick in this matchup, and he's going to be able to use the cage craft to his advantage and just stay away from Hyder Emil for long stretches of this fight, force him to make mistakes, and then catch him in intercepting shots. This is one of those fights where William Gomis is doing everything he can to make this fight boring, right? He's not trying to snipe you in the way of knocking you out. It's really, how can I defuse this bomb? And against someone like Hyder Emil, that does give you a bad matchup, in my opinion, because he's going out there looking to spark you, and the chances for that when you're playing that game are much higher. But I just think the level of technique is going to be the biggest difference here, and I think William Gomis is the faster athlete as well. So give me Gomis by boring decision.
Yes, this is Gomis. He does 2 fights a year basically, and he flip flops. He does the one in France and Paris or whatever. Then he comes to do some fight night Vegas one. Then he goes back. So now we're at this point where he's doing the Vegas card, and then he's gonna do the France card, whatever that is, later this year. So, uh, this sucks because I have Amil. So, and I don't even remember choosing Amil in this one, to be honest with you. I really don't remember it at all. But this one is going to be a defensive sounding fight. Defensive sounding fight against a high, I guess, output striker, if you want to put it that way. I think Amil is going to be pretty aggressive with his high volume striking. Gomis is going to try to, use his ability to fight on the retreat, land the precise counters, which is what he's been doing very well. Land some body kicks, try to slow Amil down over time, and then I think with that, I don't think there's gonna be any wrestling or grappling. I think this is all gonna be standing. I think both fighters have decent skills in the striking area, but I think Amil can try to use a takedown if he feels that the threat is opening up in the striking. But I think for me, Gomis is just better defensively and knows how to land while retreating, knows how to land while going on his back foot and then pushing forward. And I think that's something where I don't know if Amil has faced an opponent like Gomis, and I'm not saying Gomis is anything spectacular, I promise you. But I think this is going to be something where it's more of an overwhelming sort of situation for Amil. And I think this one's going to be slow. It's going to be boring. But unfortunately, I have to go with Gomis as well. But I think I would love to be wrong on this one. I would absolutely love to be wrong because it would help me in Dynasty. But I think this is one where Gomis takes it easy.
Well, would you look at that? You drafted. Oh, you drafted. Sorry about that. Hyder Amil at UFC Hellscape 8007, right? So we're keeping it in the building, right? It's only fitting that you
What
drafted
time
him.
was that?
That
2023?
was in 2024.
4.
Yep,
That's
last
been
year,
early.
brother. Yep,
Okay.
one of the first four events of that year. So yes, our early adopter of Hyder Emil and his skills. So yeah, funny that we're both picking against him that way. Let's go. I mean, but if he does win, it's going to be spectacular, right? So you have that to at least hope for. Next up, we move on to an interesting lightweight matchup between Nasrat Hakparas plus 235 going up against Esteban Ribovics minus 258 coming off of a fight of the year contender against Daniel Zellhuber. Sean, you get the absolute pleasure of going first in a matchup where not only are you the owner of Esteban Ribovics, but you're going head to head with me as I am on the Nasrat Hakparas train. How you feeling about this lightweight matchup?
Love it. Love Ribovics. I I forgot I drafted him because I don't remember shit. But when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, thank God!" Because this is I feel a clash of clean, varied kickboxing, and this is going to be a fun fight. I think Nasrat's going to be very jab heavy. Try to do some jab cross combination with some powerful leg kicks. Try to, push through Ribovics. But I feel like Ribovics, after just coming off of, like we just said, the fight with Zellhuber, he's ready for everything. That dude was a tank. He was able to take all types of punishment and constantly keep moving forward. And I'm Mexican, so seeing Zellhuber lose was kind of hurt me in a way. So I was actually cheering for Zellhuber because I had both. I think I chose both of them in Dynasty that week, and I think I had both. So because I was nice to have both, or maybe I was going against you. I don't remember, but I always try to choose the Mexicans. But it's this one I feel like no matter what Nasrat brings to the table, I think Ribovics is prepared for it. I think he's been through hell and back on one of the biggest stages of all time when it comes to events and places to fight. So I think this is where Ribovics adds more flair. I think he's really unpredictable in his striking, and that's what got Zellhuber. And was once he was unpredictable, he was able to land cleanly, and then when he was able to feel confident landing cleanly, it was just a fucking barrage of just constant attack. And I felt in that fight, you saw that Ribovics was constantly pushing forward, constantly going forward, constantly going forward. Had Zellhuber going back, and Zellhuber still looked good in that fight. But I think this is one where this is a perfect opportunity for Ribovics to continue to prove himself. I wish Ribovics was honestly a little bit more active in his fighting, but I think this is one where Nasrat's going to try to go with the takedown defense, and I think Ribovics will try to push in a little bit more wrestling than usual. But I think this is where Ribovics will just push forward with the striking. And I think this one's going to be Ribovics by unanimous decision, 30-27. I think this is one where I think, honestly, Ribovics can really take a huge advantage of this fight and a big step in his career with a fight like this. With Nasrat, Zellhuber wins, keep pushing forward, and then we'll see Ribovics get himself a fight night main event one day.
Man, this fight had me going back and forth. You said earlier that that was the hardest fight for you to pick. For me, this is it. And I was actually really surprised to see that the odds are where they are, considering the way I feel about this fight. Because I don't know, man. I feel like this fight is very close, and in ways that I think people fail to acknowledge, right? So first of all, I think in a matchup like this, Nasrat Haqparast has shown to be able to outlast a lot more slicker strikers than Ribovics, right? Guys like Bobby Green, who's on your dynasty team. I don't know, man. I think this fight is weird because I think if Esteban Ribovics was more active with his leg kicks, I'll be much more confident picking him in this fight. I'm gonna be picking Ribovics because I think the momentum is on his side, and I think he also has the higher platform for changing his game for his opponents. I feel like Nasrat Haqparast is someone that we already sort of wrote the book on how he's going to fight, and he's not interested in really changing those things, like you said, pumping the jab, but also he's going to come out in southpaw and he's going to beg you not to kick his leg. I think that's the clear way to an easy victory, like you're saying here. But Esteban hasn't really proven that he's willing to take that. I think he's, if anything, proven that he wants to make it a war and wants to make it gritty. And a lot of times you see him sort of enter the pocket in ways that I wouldn't really advise, right? Just outright walking in and obviously behind defensive gestures most of the time. But even in that way, I think Nasrat's going to be able to intercept him and probably going to be the faster guy, at least through the first 1.5 rounds. Um, so I think Nasrat is really live in this fight. I think I want to make it interesting just for the sake of the show and picking him, but I am leaning towards Ribovics. But fuck it, give me Nasrat Haqparast in this matchup. I think it's a close enough fight to justify the pick. And I think it's a unique matchup because although Ribovics has shown to be able to get inside on bigger fighters, I think this matchup in particular, where I think he's going to be the slower fighter, I'm interested to see his craft as far as being able to cut off Haqparast and put him in position to land strikes. I Let's do it, bro. Let's have a double head to head in Dynasty and Pick'ems.
I think this is probably my favorite. Nah, I think the main event's still my favorite fight, but this is probably right there for 1A, my favorite fight of this card.
Yeah, this is easily my favorite fight, and we'll get to my reasons why once we get to the main event. But holy shit, there's at least 7 fights we already discussed that is more deserving of the co-main event slot than
Than
this
this one.
co-main event in the middleweight division. I'm convinced this is all a campaign to tank the flyweight division, right? Because we give you a main event, but hey, we're gonna make the worst co-main event possible between Cody Brundage, who is somehow plus 110, and Julian Marquez, who is minus 122. Sean, you get the pleasure of talking about this amazing fight first. God damn it.
I
I
can't.
lied. I won't do it to you, man. I
No,
gotta
I'm
stick
gonna
with
go
the
first. I'm
order.
gonna go
Yeah.
first now.
You're
I'm
gonna
gonna
get
go
it out the
first.
way? You're gonna get it out the way?
Yeah,
Okay.
I gotta get out of the way. This one, man, this sucks. This sucks. I thought when you put it in the doc that like you just kind of threw up all the fights and then we're gonna rearrange them later. So when I found that this was actually the co-main, I was like, man, this shit's trash. Like it really is, and this is honestly what leads to my conversation that we'll have a little later. But man, this fight fucking blows. I don't care. First off, odds are bullshit. I'm picking Brundage by sub. I think this one is just a way to tank this flyweight division, like you said, but also just fucking shit on how horrendous this fucking fight night is overall. Like, and continuously doing these hellscapes, I hate it. But for me, I obviously I think Marquez holds a striking advantage due to he's I think a much more significant power advantage than Brundage here in the striking. But I think Brundage's wrestling background, I think we saw it even in the Bo fight. You know, he looked pretty solid against someone like Bo Nickel, who was definitely I think green as grass still at that point in time, but just a much better wrestler. I forgot where Brundage went to school, but it's just one of those situations where it was just Brundage struggles in the past with striking opponents, but I think this one is just about getting Brundage a victory here. I really don't look at Marquez as any sort of stock whatsoever. Maybe it's just me, but this is I still don't know what part of the matchmakers saw this as like, you know what, this would be fucking fire as a co-main because of X that we're
It
gonna
has to
get
be
result
them,
Z.
brother. They have to be overestimating Bo Nickel's star power, right? That's the
It
only thing
has
that
to be,
makes
right?
sense. And that wasn't even his last fight. And he also lost that
I know.
fight. So
Yep. I don't know. That's exactly why I've sat with this for a couple days. I'm like, why is this the co-main? I've been trying to figure out are they believing in Marquez and that's why they pushed him as a favorite, or are they trying to believe in like this underdog story of Brundage? Hey, let's make him an underdog here, and he gets a nice sub vict, and now all of a sudden we can look at, man, Bo beat Cody Brundage, remember, and like just kind of continue to hype up Bo. I've been trying to figure this out. I've been in full conspiracy theory mode. So I have no idea what it is that they've decided to make this, because you could have made this the first fight in this and for this card as well. Like, nobody would have cared. If you said this is the first fight, no one would have blinked an eye. And everyone would have been like, all right, cool. Whatever. So I don't know. I think this is all about Brundage getting controlling the pace, taking this to the ground, forcing this to the ground, and forcing control time to eventually get a decision victory or sub. I think eventually he will be able to find some sort of submission in there, and I think he will get it done mid round 2. So give me Brundage by sub.
I could definitely see Julian Marquez going out there and landing some funny shit and winning this fight by knockout. Um, but I agree with you for a lot of the things you said. This fight makes no fucking sense. Both of these guys are sub 500 in their UFC career. Speaks to the level, right? I couldn't believe that Julian Marquez was 0-3 in his last 3 and got stopped in every one of those fights. And he is still co-main in this card. Holy shit, it makes no sense. It should have been Nasrat and Esteban or anybody else, and it would have been fine. But this makes no sense. Like, this should be, you could argue this should be the first fight of the night before Montana De La Rosa and Luana Carolina. You could make that fucking argument. So, holy, how are we here, Sean? This is the state of the UFC. This is why this is hellscape, because they just don't give a shit, right? It's never been more evident. I'm also picking Cody Brundage because, like you said, he actually does the MMA. Julian Marquez is in love with his striking, and the hilarious part about it, I encourage everybody to watch the Gregory Rodriguez fight. This motherfucker's out there throwing feint after feint after feint, and then just gets one-two'd immediately. Like, not even, like, nothing about that feint established anything. and the way he got sparked out against Gregory, there's no shame, right? There's a lot of guys that get knocked out by Gregory Rodriguez, but man, he shows that he's game to fight, which is a good skill to have in MMA in general, more so than it is in boxing, right? Because you're just going to get exploited. I just feel like it's so easy to bait Julian Marquez into anything, right? Even when he is feinting you, you can just extend your right hand and crack him in a way that he won't see coming, which is bizarre, right? That is the exact opposite reason you're doing what the fuck you're doing out there. So it's crazy to me once again that this is the level of co-main events in 2025. But Cody Brundage is not a good fighter either, right? So if he goes out there and gets smoked, that's fine too, right? That's something we could see happening every day of the week. So somebody's got to fucking lose. I'm taking Cody Brundage too. Go ahead, Sean.
Here's my question: is this the first Apex with the new renovations?
That's a good question. I don't know if the renovations are done or ever really happened, so I
Dude,
cannot
could
give you an update on
could
that.
you imagine they still host it and you just see fucking construction workers in the back just like, yeah, this shit's ass. Let's get back to work, guys.
Just welding in the back. You have no
Yeah.
caution to the smoke being inhaled
Because
by these fighters.
because I thought Dana said that we wouldn't see an Apex till like November or something, or maybe he said that in November. I don't remember, but I thought it was going to be at least a year until we saw this. So that's probably going to be me watching this fight, just kind of looking in the background, like, is that a new? Is that new? Nah, that looks the same. There's still 200 people here. All right, cool. Let's get this moving. So we'll see.
Yeah, this is nuts, bro. I can't fathom this shit. And then we move on to what can only be described as a flyweight banger, right, Sean? We got Manel Kape, the sixth ranked Manel Kape, minus 218, going up against the eighth ranked Asu Almabayev, who comes back at plus 218. Sean, I know you're particularly skilled when it comes to speaking about these guys, but god damn it, it's only right. I stole it from you, god damn it. I get to speak about this matchup first. This flyweight tilt is awesome in every way except for how the fight is going to play out. Can we agree, Sean, that this fight is going to be boring? Can we agree on
Oh
that?
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. It's gonna suck.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad we're on the same page as that because I love both of these
This
guys individually. But as far as what their styles match up in this one, I think this is going to be a very avoidant fight. Now, don't get me wrong. When the Beyblades do clash, it's going to be exciting. Those moments are going to be interesting, but it's going to be a lot of outside skipping around the cage by both of these guys. And funny enough, when I was watching Manel Cape fight, this was a random thought I had in my head. But I was like, if Anderson Silva in his prime or not fought with the same counter aggression that Manel Cape does, that he never would have lost, right? That was a theory that I had in my head by watching Manel Cape fight. And then as I watched the rest of his fights, I immediately talked myself out of that mindset too. Because I'm like, yeah, he looks great in those moments with his ability to force counter opportunities, but he also can just go out there and stare at you for long periods of time. And I think in this matchup, you could argue those moments would be a net positive for him, right? Because, hey, at least you're not getting wrestled. At least you're not getting taken to the mat. But I think that could ultimately be the decision maker when it comes to this matchup. I think those moments of inactivity and who's able to edge the rounds, so to speak, is really going to be the determining factor here because I don't see this being finished within the distance. I think ultimately, just with both of the way these guys fight, obviously Cape is susceptible to knock out Almabayev, but I don't think Almabayev is intent enough to force dangerous positions to finish Manel Cape on the ground. And I also don't think he's going to be active enough to give Manel Cape a lot of opportunities to knock him out. So I don't know, man. This fight is gonna suck because of those things, but I think it is kind of fun because obviously we're trying to see where these guys' potential lie. I think this is a tough matchup for Asu because although he is very good in the areas he is good, I think in this matchup, it's just going to be hard for him to get inside on Manel Kape because he doesn't really extend his combinations, so to speak. He doesn't set up a lot of things when it comes to the wrestling and grappling. Obviously, he's very dominant there when he could get you there, and I like his ground and pound specifically. But I just feel like in this matchup, Manel Kape is going to stare his way to unanimous decision. But I think either guy winning this fight by what they do best is also on the table, right? Manel Kape could easily knock out Asu against the cage with the nasty flurry, and Asu could also just easily find himself in a position to get a submission and choke out Manel Kape. I won't be surprised, but I think Manel Kape has shown, especially as he developed into a UFC fighter from his time in Risen, that he isn't just trying to knock you out there. He has defensive capabilities on the ground, but he also is his biggest enemy as far as just throwing himself in danger and putting himself in scenarios where he can be finished in a regular way. So he, both of these guys are vulnerable in this matchup, but give me Manel Kape.
Sorry, takes me a second to unmute there. This one is tough, and it's a lot because of things you just said. But this, for me, and I said this before, that this is the one I'm most excited about because it's can go either way. One, this could be a boring ass fight and it fucking blows, which is most likely the situation. Because this reminds me of Manel's, what the hell is this kid's name who just left the UFC? Mokayev. Where it's kind of super slow and it's, all the shit talking, whatever, and then they fucking do nothing in the octagon. It's kind of avoiding and avoiding and avoiding. And I think that's kind of situation here with Manel. I think for him, I'm picking Manel to win, but this is one where it is really like Almabayev is so similar to Merab, where it's just constant push, 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 go for the multiple takedowns, apply the relentless pressure and the grappling, and go for broke on just forcing it to the ground. And Manel is all about being that like crazy, dangerous sniper that he is on the feet. If he can get you clean, it's gonna be a quick night. But it's hard to do when the guy is 6 inches from your face the whole fucking time, and he's just gonna force you to the ground, keeping this close, forcing the clinch, forcing the defend takedowns. And that's what makes me believe that this can be super boring, and this could be Almabayev's fight the whole time, where this is an easy 50-45 sort of fight. But a part of me believes that Kape is still a relentless striker enough that he can land cleanly somewhere within the first couple rounds and really change the pace of this fight. Because I think if Almabayev can find a way to force a takedown in the first round or two and really start to drain Manel, I think he can not only drain Manel physically but also mentally. And it's hard. We've seen it so many times with fighters that we've picked to win, but all of a sudden they get taken down for 10 minutes straight. They're on the ground 9 of the 10 minutes, and they're sitting there with their coach, and the coach telling them, you can't get taken down. He's like, dude, what the fuck do you think I've been trying not to do? Like, I can't control that. This dude's taking me by my fucking toenail and is forcing me in a guillotine. What do you want from me? It's tough. And I think someone like Manel, who's definitely more of a hothead, I guess we could say, definitely done some questionable things outside the cage. I think that's going to get to him. I think that can honestly get to someone like Manel, that constant pressure, forcing that, the wrestling. And I felt like that's kind of how he was going into the Mokayev fight. A lot of talking shit, but once the door closed, he was very cautious out the gate. And Mokayev is kind of like an idiot. I felt like he could have forced takedown and really forced that fight to be his early. And I'm not taking anything away from Manel, but when you saw Manel scared, I shouldn't say scared, looked scared from the first time because he didn't know how he was going to approach it. I think this is even worse than that. I think Asu was much better than Mokayev now, and I think this is one where Asu can really do damage here. I think Mokayev's great. I'm not saying Mokayev isn't great. I just think right now If I had to choose between Asu and Mokaev, I think I would choose Almabayev here. I think Almabayev is just so relentless that it's just going to be this constant pressure and forward movement. And to me, I think Manel is going to have a little bit of difficulty here. But the reason I'm picking Manel, to get all the way back to the original point, if I didn't talk your ear off, was to just, I think he can land. I think he can land punches on each and every round and really change the scorecard. And I think it all has to happen early. This is 5 rounds. So this is one where I think Manel really needs to take advantage of these first 15 and really push the pressure on Almabayev, land these punches, go to the legs, kick, hit some body punches, body kicks, really try to force the oxygen out of someone like Asu, who's got a great cardio tank and will constantly push forward. I think, obviously, easier said than done, but I think that's the only way to victory for Manel. And then, being the sniper that he is and constantly put his hands involved in this. But in a way, this is Almabayev's fight to lose. But I think Manel can get it done.
I agree in some ways, but ultimately I'm picking my guy. Am I muted right now? What is happening? I'm good?
You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
Good. I'm gonna have to edit this out, but you love to see it. Yeah, man. I don't know. When it comes to this matchup, I think the weird thing about it for me is in my head, I think I would generally side with someone that has Almabayev style, but I just don't count on him being persistent enough in those phases to especially once he's getting cracked coming in by Cape, because I feel like Cape's defensive abilities are shocking. Like he has some of the quickest eyes, if you ask me, in the sport. But he can be shocked by just single strikes, right? If you're throwing a single hard fast strike, especially something straight down the pipe, he's shown that he could get hit there. But I think his defensive countering ability is just so remarkable to watch, and it's going to force weird scenarios where Almabayev is just scared to engage in that way and then getting crashed against the fence, and that's where Cape wants to be the most. I don't got to keep speaking to the choir about why we think Cape's going to win, but I'm sure you don't mind, despite this being a sort of a fight we're both picking the same way. I think you don't mind having both of these guys on your dynasty moving forward
No.
because they're those kind of competitors in this division. So you love to see that. Just like that, Hellscape is over, ladies and gentlemen, but it's time for the MMA draft, the dynasty draft, the thing we've been looking forward to all episode. There's not a lot of fucking people, Sean, to pick from here. So it's obvious I'm going with Mario Pinto. Who do you have?
Yeah, this is not easy. This is not easy. You know me. Gotta wait. You gotta wait for me. I don't like it. All these guys are fucking ass. In reality, and just God, I hate this fucking shit. Where is he? No, I can't do it, dude. I can't do it. Oh my Christ. You know what?
I think there's an obvious answer.
There isn't because
Austen
I'm
Lane.
looking at it. I'm looking at it. Yeah, I'm looking at it as, what are you really gonna do for me by the end of the year or by the end of next year?
Mm-hmm.
It's not about this one. I usually would like to take someone who I think is like a guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I don't like anybody here. So give me Andrea Lee. Just kidding. Never.
I knew it was a lie. You might as well take William Gomis, right?
Yeah,
Even out that L.
that's what I'm thinking, honestly. Just
No
to even
way.
out the L.
Over Castaneda, brother.
Castaneda's fucking trash. He's like 4-3 in his UFC tenure, bro. What is that gonna get me? A win this week and then 2 straight L's next time?
Who knows, bro?
Like with
Just like Taylor
Gomi will
Lapilus,
win.
Gomi might
Gomi
get
will
cut
win this one. Well, that's true.
off a W.
Gomi will win, and then he'll fight the France card and win again. So I can probably steal 2 wins from Gomi and then cut him at the end of the year.
Okay. If that's the philosophy.
That's how you have to think that way, my friend. You have to think that way.
All right.
Who are
So
you going to
here we
get rid of
go.
early? I'm going to have around 15 cuts. Like the
I don't know why
only
you
other
keep
option.
assuming that. I'm pretty sure it's been 10 the last 2 years. I don't think we're
Yeah, but we're
moving out
changing that
too
up.
much. Says who, motherfucker?
Says me. Says the champion, the winner.
Oh wow. There's rules here, god damn it.
I knew you were gonna fucking get mad at that.
It's only 1 year, bitch. I won the first, so stop your shit, you little hoe.
But you only won one thing. I won the other. All right, I'm
fine.
basically 3-1, and in all time, I'm winning both. So I'm basically 5-1. In reality, I'm
Keep talking your
beating
shit,
you.
bro. It's fine. I'm glad you
You
know what it
have
feels
Barlow,
like
right?
to be a winner.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
of
have
course I
Barlow.
do.
So just give me Gomi.
Yeah, I already picked
I'll
him,
take
so.
2 wins from him and then cut him later.
All right. So as presented, let's see, Sean, because it's only right that I fill this in right now. So you have a total of 6 fighters that are competing directly against each other. So before the night even starts, you are 3-3, Sean, with Manel Kape, Asu Almabayev, Hyder Amil, William Gomis, and Charles Johnson and Ramazan Temirov. God damn. One of those pairs is not like the other two. But you also have Esteban Ribovics going head to head with my guy Nasrat Hakparas, and then of course Chepe Mariscal later on in the night. While I have Danny Barlow and Mario Pinto for the week to look forward to. So give me that 3-0. Let's see where Sean ends up at the end of the card. I'm excited for next week because next week actually matters. So I'm glad we were able to get some momentum going into one of my favorite cards of the year so far. But before we move on, Sean, I know there was a little bit you wanted to talk about when it comes to the recent state of the UFC. So I will give you the floor.
Honestly, this has a lot to do with there's a couple of conversations I want to have, but to summarize and answer this as like quickly as possible, I saw the other day. This has nothing to do with Hellscape. I saw the other day that they announced Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett, right, for the co-main event 5-rounder for what is it, UFC 314. I don't know if it's just me, but I'm so sick and tired of that being a co-main event fights like that. Listen, I love 5-rounders for between those two guys, but why am I paying $80 for that to be the second most hype fight? I don't give a shit if that could be a fight night and I'll watch it. I'm not there to spend $80 for that. I'm not doing it. You know, there was a time where the UFC refused to do 5-round co-main events unless it was a title fight, and that was it. There was no second option. They only did it for Nate Diaz a couple times, and it really started to become pretty popular when I think it was Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards, if I remember correctly, and that being the co-main, and that ended up being a wash anyway because we all know Nate doesn't start fighting until the 20-minute mark. So after that, they were like, you know what? Let's start doing that more often. Instead of making it 2 title fights or, let's fill the whole main card with great fights. Let's just have it where we have 2 guys who are big names who are going to throw down and have them go 5 rounds. And I just hate that that's like the mentality of it, where it's like it used to be like the fucking best of the best right outside of a title would fight. Number 1 contender fight right there as your co-main, or even a title fight, co-main. And it was fucking badass. Obviously, we know Paddy Pimblett and Michael Chandler, they're gonna talk shit. They're gonna show out in the octagon. But I just get so tired of like making that the normal of just throw that as a co-main. Like I'm so sick and tired of the fucking Gaethje as the co-main. I'm tired of it. Like I love Justin Gaethje, I do, but I don't give a shit about paying money. And I shouldn't say don't give a shit. I don't want to spend money on watching Gaethje fight, especially when we know we're at the tail end now. Gaethje should be a third or fourth fight in a main card, along with a number one real contender. It should have been Gaethje as a fourth fight, and somehow Charles or an Arman as a number one contender co-main. That's what I can get behind, because no matter what happens with Fiziev, or if it was Dan Hooker versus Gaethje, they're not fighting for the title next. It's never happening. They are not fighting for the title next. So having them as a co-main event when their next fight is not even going to be a co-main or a main event doesn't make any sense to me. Same thing with Chandler and Patty. Having them as a co-main makes no sense to me when whoever loses is probably on the outskirts of out of the ranking at this point. And whoever wins is in a top 7. Still 2 fights away from a title. And their best attribute is the crazy shit they say on the microphone. So it's like, I hate that shit. Where did it go? Where we used to have the fucking 3 title fights in one card, the 2 title fights in one card, or 1 big fucking fight and 3 huge number one contender type fights, or fucking badass heavyweight with a number one contender with the number one contender in the women's. And you were like, all these fucking fights are brutal. These 4 fights, these 3 fights are going to be badass. Can't wait for the co-main. And now we're talking about Paddy Pimblett and Michael Chandler as a co-main for UFC 314. Why would I give a shit about that fight? Like, I'm going to watch it because I have to spend the money on watching that fight. Or Crack Streams is going to really help me out with that one. But why would I do that? Like, that's the shit I get so angry about, is when they hype up these fights, or Dana gets on his fucking little live press conference and his stupid little Instagram, and he's like, the new co-main, and you're like, I don't give a fuck. It's Gaethje. Woo, great. Like when they made Hill versus Roundtree UFC Fight Night main event, fantastic. I love that. I love a fight night that has a badass fight like that. That fight is super similar to a Gaethje Fiziev or Gaethje Hooker, whatever type fight. You got a veteran, well-known name versus a guy not up and coming, but has really made strides, is trying to get back to a title fight, trying to get himself back there. That's a great fight night card. I don't have to pay money to see that fight. I'll do it every time. Just like what they're probably going to do with Poirier, where Poirier versus Holloway, where they're going to make it, it's probably going to be Poirier Holloway too, and they're going to try to make that the big announcement, like it's not fucking so obvious already. And it's going to be in Louisiana, and it's going to be a fight night main event. That makes sense. It's about them. Big, well-known name, have done a lot for this card, a lot for this company. Make them a main event for a fight night. I don't care. Make it in fucking Jacksonville. Make it in fucking bumblefuck nowhere. Put it in an arena. I don't give a shit. I'm not spending $80 to make sure that's the second fight I need to look forward to. I don't give a shit about Poirier's career anymore, or Gaethje's career anymore. They're never fighting for a belt again. If you're not fighting for a belt and you're not trying to fight for a belt, I don't give a fuck what you're doing with the rest of your career. I don't care if you have fun fights. That's why I don't give a shit about Nate Diaz fighting. I don't care about Nick Diaz fighting. I don't care about Conor McGregor fighting. There's never going to be a point where they are pushing their career to the point where they're going for gold. It's over. Gaethje's time is done. Max Holloway still has a very slim chance. And that fight I'll pay attention to because Poirier's retiring. And I've loved Poirier's career. And Max still has a slight chance of trying to find his way to gold in another division. Will he win? Absolutely not. But I love that. I love someone striving for the fire to push forward. I don't give a shit about fights that won't push anything. Paddy Pimblett, if he ever fights for a title, will never win. Chandler will never fight for a title. Every time he says, I'm two fights away from a title, you lose 2 straight. It's never happening. Fiziev might have a shot, so that fight could be decently interesting, but he wasn't even the choice. And if Dan Hooker was in that fight and did beat Gaethje, would you really give Dan Hooker a legitimate shot against Islam in the rematch? Like, it's shit like that that really pisses me off on co-main events. I get it. Lightweight division's kind of in a shithole right now because Arman fucking doesn't know how to make weight or make sure he's ready for a fight. And you got BST, who is the next up and comer, but they kind of pushed him too early to get his ass fucking knocked out, and they knocked out again. So like the lightweight division is pure shithole right now. I get it. Moicano was rushed, so now he's 3 fights back from really being significant again. You know, like it's shit like that that really pisses me off, and how they really try to like ruin a division for a couple years before really like hyping it up. So that's why they have no choice. Like with Dana didn't want anything to do with these double champion things, but now there's nothing for Islam to make it even remotely competitive except for holding Charles out as much as possible and giving him Arman. So they're really trying to hold it in that division as long as possible, those 2 fights, and praying BSD can make his way, or Moicano can make his way to making it a 3rd potential challenger. They're just wasting time. When Arman said he was dropping out, that was probably the best news they had all year so far. We're like, thank God, because we need to stretch this fucking division as far as possible until these next up and comers are coming. And because we have so many guys that are so old and are on their way out, this division is dead. So Arman waiting 6 to 8 months, 10 months. That's why Dana was so persistent on he's not getting a title shot next, because now the UFC can wait as long as possible for Arman. This is what I mean. It's business before what you actually see in the pleasure, but it's shit like that that fucking pisses me off. And this is why I went on this fucking 10-minute rant.
Yes, I love the rant, but I think it really isn't even the fault of those fights being bad fights. I think when we sit down to watch these fights, you're going to be excited. I think the
No,
issue
100%.
is the oversaturation, or just if we're gonna do this right, like there's some fucking fights on this card that we've witnessed, that we talked about at Hellscape. Yeah, we talk about how this card sucks, but there's some of these fights that are better than some pay-per-view fights top down,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the
Mm-hmm.
problem. It's like, if you're gonna make the tier system that already so clearly exists, right? This Hellscape card is a great example of that. If you're gonna make that tier system, at least just do it, right? At least just
Yeah.
make it very transparent that that's what it is, and let's actually bump these um pay-per-view cards up, like you're saying. Let's make these matchups significant, right? That's the issue, significance. And I think
Yeah.
ultimately those are going to be fun fights. You're going to be excited to watch them, which is why they're able to sell them. But it's at the point where they're just so hot, and as fans we got to be happy about that, right? They're giving us constant events regardless of whatever, and they're going to sell out regardless of who the fuck they put in there. You could argue the best pay-per-view this year was 311. That was one of the first weeks of the year, right? Since then, we're struggling.
Yeah.
And the next 2 pay-per-views that are coming up, it doesn't look like they're stacked, right? The best card we got is on the horizon with the Montreal cards looking fire. And the Miami card looks pretty good too, but obviously you spoke to some of the issues that you have with the co-main. I think ultimately though, these are fine. I feel like the funniest part is we're complaining about the state of things, but there has been times where it's been remarkably worse, right? There has been
Yeah.
pay-per-views with fucking Felicia Spencer and Amanda Nunes, right? Like these are the level of pay-per-views in the past too. So at this point, we've been getting served slop. We got to accept it, right? We at this point, we take our dubs where we could get them, right? Is Justin Gaethje versus Fiziev 2 really that fucking bad when you consider
No, it's not that
all the
bad.
things?
But it's for me when I don't feel like no matter how this fight goes, is them really pushing themselves to get into a title fight eventually. For fucking Jesus Christ, for Fiziev, yes, there is a shot that he can get himself back into a title contention race, sure. But him still coming off that bad injury, losing 2 straight, there's still a long way to go for him. And Gaethje, what do we really honestly? In a year from now, will Gaethje be fighting? Like, can we really think that Gaethje's still going to be fighting at the highest level competitive of fighting in a year from now? And that's the shit that upsets me. I hate that that's the co-main. I wouldn't mind that to be even the third fight, but give me something. If I'm paying $80, give me 2 fights, fucking bangers. 1, 2, title, co-main, and be that shit fucking right there, number 1 contender. Winner faces the champion. You're like, fuck, this is gonna be a great fight because whoever's facing the champion, it's gonna be a good fight. But none of these 4 guys that I've mentioned in the lightweight division that are fighting, or 6, if you even want to go Poirier and Holloway, are fighting for the title next. And it's just like it's shit like that. It's just like you hype these cards up. UFC 313, holy shit, it's fucking Pereira again. And then the whole lead up is, all right, it's not bad. It's a pretty decent card. I would have taken that for a fight night. So I like 314 is a little bit easier because there are some great fights. Obviously, everyone wants to see Bryce Mitchell fucking get killed and annihilated. You got Jeff Neal in there, Sean Woodson's in there, fucking Krylov's in there, Jan Xiaonan is in there. There's good fights all the way down. Chase Hooper's in there, but it's just that shit that really fucking pisses me off. That you just get all the way to that co-main, you're like, how is it that Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett, 2 dudes who have done nothing to earn their stripes in the UFC, really, is the co-main event? Like, how did that happen? Like, I would have rather taken Zellhuber Ribovics 2 over that fight. Give me those two. Those two will fucking kill each other again. Like, I know that's what they want in Chandler and Pimblett, and I get it. It's just that shit. That what fucking irks me. I hate seeing that. I hate seeing a main event and being like, fuck, man, I can't wait for that title fight. But the rest of the card's fucking dog shit. So, all right, whatever. I'm not spending $80. I'm not doing it. I'll just fucking ask Chris for the stream again because I'm not doing it. I hate that. I hate that shit. And you know what? It's definitely going to be a different card because we haven't talked about it yet, and we will eventually. The fact that Volkanovski's fighting for the title, you got Topuria, who's now going to lightweight. That whole thing's
I called this fight
crazy.
though. I just got to say.
We did.
I don't know if
we did talk about this, and you did say this fight would happen. So, like, it's great to see Volk in a title fight again. It's weird for me to see that, but that's just going to be a very weird card. I think the card will be great for 314, so I'm not really too upset about that one. It's just the Gaethje Fiziev one that I saw that fight happening a million miles away. I was talking about it at work. They're like, they'll probably give him Gamrot so he gets a win. I'm like, no, they want Gaethje out. They're tired of giving Gaethje the co-mains because he was a big name. So it's kind of like Holly Holmes situation where there's such a big name back then that you're just kind of like forcing, like, we can't make him a prelim. We can't give him, the first fight of the main event. I mean, the main card. We have to give him a co-main. He is making that type of money. So for me, that's just how I feel. Like, I always felt like Justin and Dustin were the gatekeepers. So even when they were getting title fights, I don't know if there was a time where I saw them in a title fight where I really honestly considered them to win. And I feel like that was their legacy in the UFC, was being right there. And it sucks. I'm not trying to hate, but they were always right there. But the person who was champion at the time was levels above them. And that's for them, it's literally been Dagestan the entire
and that's
time.
what makes these champions special, right?
And
I'm tired of you
Charles.
shitting on the UFC, goddammit. I let it rock. I sat here for the last fucking 8 minutes. I let it fucking rock. But hey, bro,
Yes.
I fucking love Gaethje, all right? He goes out there and fucking puts his heart on the line every single motherfucking time. The
Me
last
too.
time
I like him.
and fucking
I'm just
Fiziev
tired of
fought,
it.
hey, last time him and Fiziev fought, we got a fucking banger of a fight that he
we
almost
were together
lost.
for that.
He had a grab by the scruff of his neck to win that fight. So yeah, we were together. We had a good time. So what the fuck, man? Why are we so bleak?
That was what? That was Usman Edwards 2 or 3, technically 3.
Mm-hmm.
And how fucking we haven't seen Usman since, really. I know he's fought Hamzat, but like,
hey, he's gonna be fighting Buckley coming up. Have you not noticed? Have you not heard?
Who? What?
Usman's fighting Buckley.
Yeah, good, but it's just a shit that it's just
this is
shit
fear
like
of a black planet. Shut up.
We're warning a dude who's 3-3 in his last 6.
How dare you? How
like,
dare you? Speak of our
Is
legends
it me?
with respect,
Is it
God
me?
damn it.
3-3 in your last 6
Hey, we just saw
against a
Julian
guy who's
Marquez as in
0-2,
the co-main.
who hasn't won
Julian
in 3 years.
Marquez.
3-3 versus a guy who hasn't won in 3 years. How is that the
Skills
co-main?
pay the bills, brother. Skills pay the
But
bills.
imagine telling someone that. Imagine telling someone, dude, 2025 UFC co-main event is going to be a guy who's 3-3 in his last fucking 6 since 2020, and a guy who hasn't won in 3 years. Bro, this is fucking fire. This is going to be good. And it's a rematch, dude. You're going to be like, what? I don't give a shit. Why would I care? You know, and then when you, like, what is Chandler? Like, won for his last 4?
Yep.
It gets a guy who should have lost and, you know, beat Tuna Can Tony and fucking, what was it? King Green, which that was a great performance. But 2 dudes on the way out, too. So it's like,
yeah.
what are we talking about? It's
funny because
all the
I
guys
just
on the
think
way
they're
out.
so bad at matchmaking that they make these problems for themselves. Like these are fights that in theory need to happen, but like you say, shouldn't be at this scale. But they press themselves for time with all the events they got, and god damn it, we just gotta accept it. We gotta enjoy the slop, as I said earlier.
Yeah.
Just move
Yeah,
on.
well, we'll see. Hopefully, whatever this fucking thing that Dana says he's been cooking that no one's gonna see coming for this fight that he's been talking about that he's got coming up later this year,
Yeah,
it better
I forgot
fucking
about
kill.
that. It's a good
And
shout.
whatever
Yep.
this international fight week where that'll probably have John Jones as the main event, that fucking card better be as close to UFC 300 material as possible, because if you
Isn't
want to
that
sell,
setting insane expectations, brother? Isn't that
no,
insane
it's not.
expectations?
It's not for the amount of fighters that you have and the amount of dog shit fucking hellscapes you want to put together. There's no reason to not save these guys at least a whole main card on International Fight Week, the biggest week of the year, for the biggest card of the year. And if John Jones is going to be that guy versus Tom Aspinall, the biggest fight the UFC can probably put together all time, that everyone's been waiting for now, what, 2 years? There's no reason. If I see a fucking Gaethje co-main again, I'm not watching it. I'll make this bet right here, right now. I will not watch the whole card if I see a bullshit thing like that. I don't want to sniff Conor McGregor's name.
Bro, Gaethje was the co-main at UFC 300. What the fuck?
I know. That's what I'm talking about. That's the shit I'm talking about. And UFC 300.
You said you wanted
great.
it to be 300 worthy. You fuck.
I get it. Yes, I get what you. I know. But at the time, Gaethje, if Gaethje won that fight, okay, well, first of all, Gaethje was the number 1 contender, and he took that fight because you knew it was going to be a banger of a fight on the biggest stage, and only had everything to lose, and then he lost everything. So it was a big moment for 2 of the biggest, Hall of Famer names ish to get in there and fight each other. But that probably wasn't in the UFC's plans. There was no way that was supposed to be Jamal Hill as the main event at UFC 300. That was not supposed to happen. He talked all that about getting that card to be crazy. I think he failed on like half the fights and then just kind of filled it in with bigger names. Like, there's no reason ever Jim Miller, I get it, 100, 200, Jim Miller versus Bobby Green should ever be on that card. There should no reason with the names that you have and the Hall of Fame fucking talent that there should ever be. UFC 300 should have had Dustin and Justin on the card. And fucking, Adesanya. And why is Volkanovski fighting the card before? Why is Sean O'Malley fighting at 299? But again, Cheeto Vera, they gave him an easy win. This is just what I mean. I'm done ranting. This is the shit I'm talking about. They're going to give Sean O'Malley the fucking rematch against Marab, which he definitely does not fucking deserve.
Yeah, I agree with
and
that.
They're going to just give it to him anyway. This is the bullshit I'm talking about. It's just like, I hate the direction it went. Like 5 years ago, it still was kind of like this, but you still felt like when there was the 3 title fights, whatever, well, I forgot what it was. Before, it was Gilbert Burns versus Kamaru, it was Rose Namajunas versus Joanna 2. Oh no, it was versus Shang Wei Li 2. and I forgot who the fucking other one was, but that was fucking amazing. And 3 title fights, or 2 title fights, and a number 1 contender fight. You know, where the fuck did that go? You have more talent than ever, more fucking prospects than ever, more up and coming talent to promote than ever. You had one of the best fights ever with Zellhuber and Ribovics, like I keep mentioning, where that was in for performance and fight of the year. Where's the promotion for those two? Where is it? I haven't heard shit since that night ended. Those two could have been promoted as these guys are on the come up. These 2 dudes are fucking dogs. They're going to be next. We're giving them a fight night back to back. These 2 will rematch again at UFC 314, 15, 16, and whatever. Where is that? No, let's make sure fucking Jalen Turner, whatever the fuck, gets his 4th fight where he can make sure he loses in a fashion where he was winning the whole time. Let's make sure he's on the 3rd fight of the night and on a pay-per-view, which no one is going to want to see anymore. Like,
yo, you are super depressed about this. I disagree with you a lot. Like, I don't.
Good.
I'm nowhere near as
I
just
hate that
are.
this is the way it goes. I hate that this is the way it's turned. I just feel like I love the UFC. I love watching every card. We fucking do the show. I just hate where it went from a time where it was so fucking badass, and you had title fight with a number 1 contender, badass fucking fight. And, like, that was the thing. Like, okay, those are the fucking things to look forward to. I can't wait. Like, if you look back, just from when we started, Volk versus Jair, Brandon Moreno versus Pantoja, Robert Whittaker versus Driscus. Like, banger. Dustin Poirier versus Gaethje, which was the one card I did not want to watch, and I didn't pay for. But you still had Jan Blachowicz versus Pereira on his way up. Like, you could go all day where you had number 1 contender fight, number 1 contender fight, number 1 contender fight. But I'm done. I'm done talking. I'm finished here.
Are you sure? Because, god damn, this is a legendary rant from my guy, Sean. There's nothing else left for me to say. Just
I feel
next
like Don
time.
McGregor right now.
Yep. Next time you're getting down on yourself, next time you're a little upset, just remember, you're nowhere near as depressed as Sean is about the state of the UFC. We'll catch you all next week to talk about a pay-per-view card that is apparently shit, according to Sean. But goddamn it, I'm looking forward to it. So we'll catch you for that. As always, thank you for tuning in, and don't forget, we love you. Mwah.